Okay, I'm gonna try to be vulnerable and share this story with you because while it's embarrassing for me, I think and I hope that it's actually gonna be an encouragement for many of you. I've been getting a lot of emails from people recently saying that they're having difficulty either starting or finishing their pilot training and they're feeling really discouraged because of it. So I wanna share this story with you really just to tell you that you are absolutely not alone in this challenge. I can relate to you in a very real way. I'd really love to become a certified flight instructor one day, and to do that, you first need your commercial license. Several years ago, I decided to start working towards that, and it wasn't urgent, but it was something I wanted to work on. So I started by taking a weekend ground school at American Flyers here in Dallas, and I got my endorsement for the written test. Now for my private and my instrument, I always took the written test on that Sunday immediately following ground school, but for the commercial, I decided to wait. And this is where things went south. Because I said, well, no big deal, I'll take the test this week. And then the week got busy and I said, well, I've got this weekend. But wait a second, oh yeah, I forgot, I actually have plans this weekend. So I'll do it next week. Or you know what, maybe let's get a little bit of rest and kind of refresh things. I need to study a little bit more. And then so on and so forth. You can see where this goes. You have this mental conversation with yourself 20 times, and before you know it, a couple years have passed and I'm right back to where I started. Now, this isn't the end of the story, but already lesson number one for me here is that you gotta get stuff on the calendar. I don't care if it's a written test for aviation or a date with your significant other, we just have to get things on the calendar or else it might never happen and we'll fall off the slippery slope of I'll get around to it. So a few years later, I decided to revisit the process. It wasn't urgent, but I thought, if I ever quit my job one day, then being a flight instructor would be a reliable and more importantly, a rewarding side gig for me. So working towards it would probably be a good use of time. I took King School's online ground school and then immediately put that written test on the calendar and I passed. So lesson number one, taken to heart. And I finished the remaining flight requirements for the commercial license and then started working on the maneuvers in preparation for the check ride. But then the smallest problem turned into a big one. We had a spell of consistently bad weather here, coupled with some travel plans and prior commitments and work and you name it. And before you knew it, I had fallen off the slippery slope of life getting in the way. A few weeks of, I'll get back to it here next week, turned into, well, it's kind of been a while, so maybe I need to go refresh on some of these things before I go take my next lesson, which then turned into, maybe this just isn't the right time after all. And before you know it, more than 24 months had passed since my written test, meaning I would need to take it again before my check ride, which means I'm right back to where I started. Now, looking back, I really can now see my fatal flaw. Finishing my commercial license at that time was more of a nice to have and not a need, not a burning, pressing need, which meant that it didn't really have the urgency and the importance associated with it that I really needed in order to say no to other things that popped up in my life. Now, I'm not saying to prioritize this above family or more important commitments, but I mean saying no to the smaller stuff that should naturally get less priority when you are laser focused on your flight training. I wasn't honest with myself about my own bandwidth, so my commercial training really died a slow death. So lesson number two here is that if we're going to start our flight training, we really have to have the end in mind, and we need to create a dedicated season to just knocking it out. It has to be a burning need and a desire, and not just a nice to have, so that way we can prioritize it even when life tends to get in the way. In fact, I did this with my instrument rating and I was able to fly 2 to 3 times per week because I did dedicate that season to training consistently and it really paid off. I was able to go through it with very few setbacks and really in retrospect, this is the way to do it if you can. It worked really well. With both of these lessons in mind, here's my plan going forward and my advice for you that I really believe that you can apply to your private, your commercial, your instrument rating, your CFI, you name it. I think this can work really well for you. It's what I'm gonna do for myself. When it comes time that I want to be an instructor, I'm gonna get that on the calendar like months in advance with the support of my wife and plan on a season of dedicated flight training to just really knocking that out. It's not going to be one of those situations where, I don't know, I may or may not fly this week depending on what's going on, but something that is instead deeply prioritized in part of the calendar. I'd like to get a CFI Academy on the books in the next couple of years, and I'll plan my commercial license to be cranked out leading up to that. It just really has to be intentional and planned, or else it just simply won't happen. Now, if you're hearing this and thinking, gosh, that's me, that's totally my story, then be encouraged. The whole point of this video is to encourage you and say you're not alone. There's people like me that have struggled with consistently flight training, and I've had goals on the calendar several times and didn't achieve those goals. And so we just have to be practical about next steps, but be encouraged, you are not alone. So many people, myself included, get embarrassed about losing momentum, and we see other people seemingly having tons of momentum, and we compare ourselves and we can get down about it, and we feel feel like we're the only one with that problem, and that's just simply not the case. It's a challenge for all of us to prioritize flying. It just is, and I feel like a lot of you need to hear me say that to say, oh, okay, good, I'm not alone. And really, there's no magical fix to this other than prioritizing fixing the problem. So I want to do something here that I really haven't done in other videos. There's two parts. One, if you are struggling to either get started with your flight training or maybe finishing your flight training, would you just please leave me a comment down below and just share your story? Share maybe either what's been challenging or what's holding you back. I think just voicing that for the first time can be so helpful. But then secondly, I want to encourage everyone else watching this video just to take 60 seconds, literally 60 seconds, and scroll down into the comments and find one person that you think you can encourage. Either saying, hey, hang in there, or hey, here's how I maybe have solved that problem, or here's some advice, or hey, you're not alone. I think that would be maybe the most wonderful comment section of any video you've ever found, where people are saying, man, I'm struggling, I'm trying, but I want this. And you have everyone else coming in and supporting you saying, hey, it's going to be worth it. Let's get practical about how to solve it. Like, hang in there. You are not alone. What a wonderful conversation that would be. And I think it's going to massively impact and benefit the aviation community, and I really think it's going to help create more pilots. It is worth 60 seconds of your time. I'm going to be participating in the comments down below as well, and I think it'll be a wonderful discussion. So you are not alone. Be encouraged. Keep running the race, and I'll see you down in the comments.